Here's a summary for you. If you would ask me right now what would be a good budget DAC that could power up most of your gear to its full potential, including ones which are hard to drive, this is what I would say. Let's get started. Welcome back, audiophiles. It's me, your boy Joe, back again with another video. And this time, we're actually going to look at another bunch from a well-known brand that we've been looking into, Venture Electronics. This time, we're going to be looking at the Venture Electronics Megatron, the Venture Electronics Devastator, as well as the Venture Electronics Monk Cable Plus. So a quick disclaimer that all of these goodies is sent to me from the Audio Geek group and of course from Venture Electronics. So a huge shout out to both of them. Thank you so much for these goodies. But as usual, no biases in any of these reviews, but spoiler alert, they're all really good. So in terms of pricing, the Venture Electronics Megatron comes at just $50 and the Venture Electronics Devastator is just $20, while the Venture Electronics Monk Cable Plus comes at around $100. These are the prices as per their website, in which I will leave links down below so you can check it out if you want. With all that said, time to get to the unboxing. So in terms of unboxing, as you could expect, for these kind of value for money packages, you're not going to get the unboxing experience per se. This Venture Electronics Devastator literally came in this particular plastic pouch in which you open and you take it. Nothing else to it. I really can't expect much that you could put in for a $20 packaging with this much value. I'll get to this in the sound impressions, but let's move on to the other items. As for the Venture Electronics Megatron, it came in this box. This box, as you can see, as plain as it gets, it has the branding on it, and inside the box was of course the Megatron, and it comes along with this little bitty accessory pouch. So it comes with a USB-C to C, it also comes with rubber padding, and it comes with a little USB-C to A converter, so you could also plug this into any other kind of PCs that you want to, so it's pretty much universally out there. So here's a closer look at the Venture Electronics Megatron. As you can see here, I've already added the rubber padding for my one. Here is a close-up of the ports that you can see in here. We have the 4.4, we have the 3.5, and we have the 2.5 balanced ports. The backside is having the charge, the data, the line out, as well as a switch. Now this switch is what you have to switch on in order for the line out to pass through. So you could use this as a means of a simple DAC and then take this output to an amp. But the line out in here is a 3.5 line out only. It's not having a 4.4, so do keep that in mind. As for the Venture Electronics Devastator, it's as normal as it can get. You could see that we have a metal build body and we have a Type-C in the back, and we have an okay cable. It's having some sheathing in it, but it is on the thin side, but I honestly can't think of any other kind of design for this. If I want to nitpick on it, maybe I would say that the cable is a tad too thin and might get damaged on the long run, but honestly that's all I could think about for this one. As for other goodies, I also got this Venture Electronics adapter, which is rated to be at 75 ohms, and this is probably to increase the bass performance of it. I will tell more about this in the sound impressions. And let me also now show you the Monk Cable Plus. It's a 4.4 mm termination. It comes in a pretty good, very high quality braided cable, which also ends with a good Y split, which has the Venture Electronics branding. Finishes off with a pair of dual 3.5 mm jacks. These are compatible with headphones like the HiFiMAN series, in which I am now using this for my HiFiMAN Ananda. If I were to talk about the design of this cable is well kept. It is built like a tank, and I'm sure this will last for years to come because the braiding is really spot on. If I were to nitpick on it, then I would say that we don't have a chin slider, but honestly, for these kind of headphones, you would not be thinking of a chin slider because I honestly don't require a chin slider when I am using my Ananda Stealth, but hey, that is something on the design aspect for you. As for the left and right, you could see that we have a small red color part in here. This will denote that this is the right side, and the other one is of course the left side. With all the design aspects out of the way, let's move on to the sound impressions. So when it comes to the sound outputs, let me tell you that the Megatron is really good in driving high power sets. In this particular Megatron, it is rated to be 300 milliwatts in 32 ohms output. But honestly, I didn't feel like it's 300 milliwatts. I really think that is something well beyond 300. Reason being, all of my most heaviest demanding gear, even including my HiFiMAN Ananda, is running perfectly fine off of this. That too, perfectly fine without using the power output. By means of that, I'm telling you that you can use the Venture Electronics just by using the data cable, provided that data cable is giving power output along with it. So if you were to connect this to the PC, then the PC would tend to power this pretty fine. If you're connecting this to a phone, then probably you could then connect the charge cable to, let's say, a power bank, and then keep that power bank stacked on top of this. This is similar to how the Venture Electronics was working even with the Prime DAC, if you recall. I'm going to put a card in there so you could check out that review as well if you're interested. As for all of my gear, I just connected this to the PC. It powered up just fine, no other extra power through the charge necessary, and it drove all of my gear pretty well, in fact. As for the quality of the output, let's just first say that the bass response of a Venture Electronics is spot on. You cannot beat the Venture Electronics case of bass performance. The bass is really strong, the bass is punchy, it has a very good texture to it. That bass rendition is really good across any of the songs that you're using, provided you're using with the Megatron. That same characteristic also goes for the Devastator. Now, this Devastator is rated to give 110 milliwatts at 32 ohms impedance. So this one is a little bit lesser than the Megatron, but honestly, the Devastator is also really good in terms of its power output. I did try connecting my Ananda with the Devastator, albeit that's a bit of an overkill and it was having to crank this to the max. But for the Megatron, when I connected the Ananda Stealth, it was running just fine. It was running at around like 70-80% volume. Now, in that volume case, let me also tell you that the Megatron doesn't have a volume of its own. It runs off the volume of the PC or the phone that you're connecting it to. So in this case, one of the things I do find is that this is really good to power something which needs a lot of power. By means of that, if you were to connect something like a highly sensitive IEM, this honestly kind of just overpowers it, even on step 1. So in my PC, even if I put it step 1, I was not able to run things which are very sensitive like a H60. H60 is already too loud for me when I put just one step of it. Similar cases for the S12 2024 edition. One step is already too loud, and if you go any more, you're on mute. So the volume control is a bit finicky with this if you're having gear that needs lesser volume. The same thing to go with the Devastator. Devastator doesn't have a volume of its own, so it pretty much relies on the volume of the computer itself. So when I put this with the earphones, there were cases like if I use this with a Volair, it is really good just at 2 steps. If you go one step down, you're a bit too low, and if you go 2 steps, it's a little bit too much volume for me, but it's manageable. So this kind of volume control on both of these things is something that you should be wary of. So in terms of the cable, the Venture Electronics Monk Cable Plus is a kind of a high gauge cable. So the Monk Cable Plus is a heavy gauge silver plated wire which actually has an impedance on its own, something like that, I would feel. When you use this particular cable, you would need more power and more volume to run the same thing that you would run if you were to use something like, let's say, the stock cable. This is a very clear-cut difference. If I were to connect this to the Ananda, I would need like 2 to 3 steps more than what I used to use when I have the stock cable of the Ananda Stealth. But that particular tribute is now providing you with a means of a more spacious soundstage. It gives much more better bass response. It's giving the headphone more headroom to work with, and it's giving a much more cleaner output than the stock cable. I done A/B testing with this and the stock cable of the Ananda side by side, and I really found this to do so much better than the stock cable. So in terms of sound quality, this particular 75 ohm impedance adapter, when you are using this with your standard earphones, because this one is a 3.5 impedance adapter, I find that the bass is actually really good. It uplifts that bass and it gives that extra bass shelf that you would really like. So this one is pretty much getting the job done of something like an EQ, but in an analog fashion, and that is something I really like. And it's giving pretty clean output, albeit a little bit on a bleed if you try this with other IEMs, which really does not synergize well with this. So if you want to try this on something like, let's say, this S12 2024, I found that to work well. If you try this on any kind of gaming IEMs, I've tried this on cases like the Shadow X. I have tried this on a KZ Taurus. Here's a review of the KZ Taurus if you missed that one. I find that it's giving a good bass boost across the board, and pretty much it's a nice boost overall. So if you're wanting that extra little bit of bass oomph in your music, then you could just plug this into your 3.5. So it even works into the 3.5 of the Megatron. Plug this in there, put your 3.5 with whatever kind of 3.5 that you want, and you're good to go. So with all that said, let's move on to some songs played with both the Megatron as well as the Devastator. So as usual, all of the songs that I'll be listening to, I'm going to be giving you in the form of an Apple Music playlist. That'll be down in the descriptions below the like button, so you can check it out and listen to the same songs that I'm listening to. So the first song that we're going to be listening to is Taki by DJ Snake, Ozuna, Selena Gomez, and Cardi B. That's a lot of artists out here. So it's a really good song because it has a very good punchy bass rhythm in it, and that bass rhythm is really good. It's well textured. It has really good feel for the song, something really good to listen. And in this case, the way that I'm going to go about is I'm not going to be telling you about the headphones or the gear that I'm using per se. I'm going to be giving you a difference in which how this particular headphone is functioning with the Megatron and with something else. Like, let's say I'm going to also compare it with the laptop itself out of just its 3.5. And I'm also be comparing it with my other gear, such as my Fosse Audio ZH3 and also the iBasso DX320. So these are all high-end gears that I do have in my repertoire, but let me try to give you the best comparison as possible. I'm not going to try to say that this is bad and this is good, but I'm going to try to say that this is going to give this particular extra clarity, or else this is going to give this particular extra characteristic. When it comes to the HiFiMAN Ananda connected with the Megatron using the Monk Cable Plus, what I'm getting is a very, very good bass dynamics. The bass dynamics in the song is excellent. It keeps the mids and the trebles very clear and away from the song, but the bass is having the full focus. Megatron is really focusing on how the bass dynamics and the bass delivery is given. So the bass punchiness is amazing. For something like the HiFiMAN Ananda of all things, it getting a better bass response is absolutely amazing. In terms of drivability, as you can see, I'm just having my drivability on around like 40 to 50%, and already that is well enough loud for me to listen to with this. And in fact, the Apple Music is also toned down a little bit. I'm not putting Apple Music's own volume at 100%. So you could imagine how much power is available at the Megatron without the need of any other kind of external charge sources required for the Megatron. And this is also in addition with the high gauge cable that I've said before. So overall, very good song. Mids are excellent, and the treble is as usual as per the HiFiMAN Ananda. But when it comes to the bass thump, the bass slam, the bass texture, all of that is increased when using the Megatron. So now what I've done is I've actually connected the HiFiMAN Ananda with the same Monk Cable Plus with the Devastator. Now in this case, I have to keep the volume at around close to 90% in order for me to get the audio that I want from the Ananda. So in this case, as expected, the Devastator is having lesser power as compared to the Megatron. But what I'm actually astonished about is that the Devastator can still run the HiFiMAN Ananda with that said power. And really good. I would not say it is as good as the Megatron. Megatron's power dynamics was much more cleaner, much more richer. The Devastator was able to cope up with it, but then at the cost of some of the upper details. So some of the upper details came down a bit in quality, and it kind of little bit of a mix in there. But the bass is like, I would say close to 80, 85, even I would say 90% as of the quality of the Megatron. But the dynamics is much more better in the Megatron. By dynamics, I mean the silent hits of the bass to the loud hit. That kind of distance between them is much more better. So that's an overall for you. It gives a much more better bass dynamics as compared to its own unit, and it gives a better bass texture, and it gives a better bass punch with the other parts of the song, such as the treble and the mids, in its particular shining glory. But the key aspect that I want to bring into you once again is bass, 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 bass. And really good song to listen to as well. So the next song that we're going to see along with the next set of gear is Tauba Tauba by Karan Ojla. And this one, before you even think about it, no, I will not dance. So in this case, we'll be using the Monarch Mark IIs along with the EA Cadmus cable. Review of this cable coming soon. Stay tuned to check it out. I was able to run the Monarch of just 40% power. So this is perfectly enough to run the Monarch, for this case, the Megatron. And when I'm using the Devastator, I was able to run this as close to like 70-ish percent. So it's still really good, 70 to 60. In fact, 70 itself was really loud. So power-wise, the Megatron and the Devastator was able to run the Monarchs perfectly well. When it comes to the sound output, Monarch is really well known for its perfect, like super wide soundstage and its bass clarity. It's also having that kind of thumpy bass in it, but not as much as the bass clarity itself. Now, what I feel that happened is when you put the Megatron in it, the bass just boosted even more. And it boosted to a sense that as a bass head, I am loving it. So I am enjoying that sense of bass punch, the bass slam, as well as the bass texture. So you could feel that bass. It's reverberating around your mind as well, and it's enveloping around you. Really good. And that bass is very clean. So there is no bleed at all going to the mids, at least for my case when I'm listening to the songs. This one is a perfect song which has a nice, good bass line in it. So there's a bass line and rhythm present all throughout the song, and that bass didn't bleed over to the mids. So the mids, the vocals, all of that was as clean as it is in other gear, but with the Megatron, so the bass just uplifts a bit and gives that perfect boost that you expect. And the trebles are really smooth, it's really good, it's rendered really well. I would say as clear as it can get of what the song is providing you, and it's not giving a differences in the treble for that matter. So the treble, if it's sharp, it would stay sharp. If it is blunt, it would stay blunt. What it is giving is all in that bass region, once again, for this song. So now I'm trying the same song with the same gear, this time with the Devastator. When I put it with the Devastator, it kind of shows that, okay, the Devastator is coming down a bit. In this case, I feel like the bass is all there. First of all, power-wise, I had to put it to 70%, close to 80 for me to get that output response that I want. When we're going to that much, I feel like the mids are a little bit muddled in the Devastator's case. Bass performance is there, but then in this case, there is a slight bass bleed. The Monarch is picking up that bass bleed even more stronger, so it's more attuned to it. And I could feel that bass bleed coming towards the mid. The treble, it's still there, so I would not call this the treble as being affected by the Devastator. In terms of the bass and the mids, it's not to the point that I would expect it to be. It's giving an output, I would agree on that, but the quality of the output is much lesser compared to the Megatron's case. And I would still say that in the benefit of the doubt that this is expected, the Devastator's main goal is just to keep it cool and composed and just easy portable unit, but all of my points is going to Megatron for at least the Monarch. So Monarch running on Devastator is not the option to go for, but Monarch running on Megatron, perfect option. And super song to listen to as well. You will really like this song. Okay, so the last one that we're going to check with the gear that I'm going to try is Tchikita by Camille Schneider. And the gear that I'm using is the Mangear T Pro with the Effect Audio Aries cable. So once again, review of this coming soon. Stay tuned. So this is where I would see that the power itself being a little bit on the disadvantage of the Megatron. I was able to get this cranked up to its potential at just like 2 steps of my laptop keyboard. So there are points where I had to reduce it a bit, increase it a bit. I had to now even reduce the volume of the Apple Music in order for me to cope up with how I could change the volume of the Megatron. So Megatron is really not built for IEMs that would just rely on the smallest of power in order to run to its best of potentials. In this case, when I'm using the T Pro, it's amazing. T Pro itself is very good for its bass performance, and that bass itself is once again uplifted and giving that kind of clean bass with the super sub rubble that you would expect it to be. The bass slam is really good, and it's having a clean mid once again for the Megatron, and the voice, the vocals, the treble responses is all as is. It doesn't touch much in that particular range. It keeps it perfectly, no reducing, no increasing, as it is without ruining it. I was able to listen to the song really well. I think I could listen to each of the instruments, the staging, the imaging part, all of that is perfectly done, and it is as per what it would be with the IEMs that you're listening to. I'm not giving this towards the IEMs and trying to tell the characteristics of the IEMs. I'm trying to bring this towards the characteristics of the DAC. So now I'm going to be trying the same thing with the Devastator. Now I'm listening to the T Pro with the Devastator, and conversely, it's actually really good. good. So this with stark regards to the other gear which requires more power. When they need more power and the Devastator is getting cranked up to beyond, like, let's say 70-80%, that's when you start to see the Devastator falling down in its quality. But in this case, the Devastator is just around like 50-40%, and that itself is perfectly enough for the T Pro to be running. And that is really good in terms of output. And once again, I'm getting that kind of very good bass quality. In this case, let me put into comparison like 80-85% of the bass quality of the Megatron. Clean mids now, so the mids are not getting with that bass bleed and bloating of the bass region. And the treble is once again an untouched treble. I am thinking that the Devastator is having its very good potential, provided you're looking at the 40 to 50 to maybe I would say up to like the 70% of its volume capacity. When you push it beyond its 70% and trying to crank up that extra juice, that's when you start to see the reduction of the other instruments and it starts to feel a bit bloated. It's starting to muddle up a little bit. But then when it's in the lower volumes and when the IEM is capable of handling that lower volume, it's having a really good bass response to, I would say, like up to like an overall of 85% of how the Megatron would be. So, what are my overall impressions for the Megatron, the Devastator, and the Monk Cable Plus? Well, for starters, the Megatron is amazing at running IEMs, which needs power. So, if your IEM is something that would need power and you're in the budget for some kind of a DAC to just start up on, by all means, I would highly recommend the Megatron to start with. It has a really good bass response. It has that clean mids that will not be changing any kind of characteristics of the IEM itself, and it has good treble response. It's not going to be giving you that extra spice. It's very transparent in terms of the treble and the mids, but the bass response is where you could just imagine an immediate bass boost, as I could call it. When it comes to the Devastator, now the Devastator is giving me a little bit of a mixed response. The Devastator will be good in order to power up IEMs, which needs that little bit of power, but not so much that it has to crank all the way up to 70% or above. So when you crank this beyond 70%, you start to hear that little bit of a distortion. You start to hear that little bit of bass bleed. By distortion, I don't mean like very bad output quality at all. By no means I'm saying that, but I say that it's very good when you're controlling the output of this up to, let's say, like 40s to 50s. When your IEM is audible at its 40 to 50, your IEM as that is very good potential for a Devastator to run perfect. But if your IEM needs way more than that, you're going to need a Megatron for this. So what will I rate this? By all means, as you could see that I am starting to be even in a shilling aspect of this Megatron, I would happily grade this Megatron to be on a scale of 5 out of 5. And as for the Devastator is giving me a little bit of a mixed response. So I would quote the Devastator to be something at around like 4 out of 5. The only reason I could not put this at a 5 out of 5, it's really good in terms of the value because it's a $20 thing, but it's not giving good value for IEMs, which needs that full power. So if you're cranking this beyond 70%, then you're starting to notice the degrade of the IEM's output quality. And in terms of the Monk Cable Plus, a quick special shout out, it's giving a really good output quality and it really did enhance my Ananda. If you notice all of my videos, I am using the Monk Cable Plus along with my Ananda, and I've just tidied up whatever wire that my Ananda came with, and it is increasing the quality of my Ananda perfectly well. It's giving that bass that the Ananda is lacking. It's giving a much more better soundstage, and it's giving that kind of treble response that I find really comfortable with the Ananda. If I were to give a quick rating for the Monk Cable Plus, I would happily give this a 5 out of 5 just because it's a cable which is once again a value for money, because we're talking about a $100 cable when other cables which are as good as this is easily crossing more than $200 to $300. So in that case, the Monk Cable Plus is really good value for money if you want that extra bit of oomph to one of your high-end cans. So that's pretty much it for all of these goodies. Do let me know what you think about the Megatron and the Devastator, or are you also using the Monk Cable Plus? Do let me know down at the comments below, and if you do enjoy this video, give me a thumbs up. If you don't like the video, give me a thumbs down. I don't know. Until then, this is Joe, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.